Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are unhappy about the situation in Afghanistan. Many doubtful that the U.S. can get everyone out of Afghanistan by the end of August. This comes as many wonder where all the Afghans who do make it out are going to end up. The Supreme Court has ordered the Biden administration to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy. The policy says migrants have to stay in Mexico while they wait for their U.S. immigration court dates. And the House of Representatives approved the $3.5 trillion budget plan that paves the way for Democrats to pass legislation expanding the social safety net. Tune into Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are raising concerns about the situation in Afghanistan. Many are worried it's not enough time to get everyone out.
This administration has horribly bungled the leaving of Afghanistan.
President Biden said Tuesday they are on pace to finish evacuations by August 31st, contingent on the Taliban's cooperation. But Republican Michael McCall doesn't believe it.
There's no way we can humanly get all of our American citizens and Afghan partners out of country by that time. People are going to die, and they're going to be left behind.
Democrat Seth Moulton says he and another lawmaker secretly visited the Kabul airport on Tuesday. Both are military veterans and serve on the Armed Services Committee. Moulton tweets, "Washington should be ashamed of the position we put our service members in." He said after talking to commanders on the ground, it's obvious they won't get everyone out on time because of the late start. Moulton tweets, "Sadly and frustratingly, getting our people out depends on maintaining the current bizarre relationship with the Taliban." The other lawmaker was Republican Representative from Michigan, Peter Meier. Both lawmakers said the trip was important in helping to oversee the evacuation process. But the White House was unhappy about it. According to the Associated Press, officials said the White House, State, and Defense Departments were all, quote, furious about the trip. One told the outlet the administration viewed the trip as unhelpful, while others said it was a distraction for troops and commanders on the ground. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi also issued a notice saying, "I write to reiterate that the Departments of Defense and State have requested that members not travel to Afghanistan during this time of danger." Multiple Americans telling news outlets they are stranded in Afghanistan, unable to reach the airport because of Taliban checkpoints. A Taliban spokesman says they block the road to the airport so Afghans can't get out. He says they need them to help rebuild the country. Since August 14th, the Pentagon says more than 58,000 individuals have been evacuated by the U.S., allies, and private citizens. The Biden administration confirms that number includes more than 4,000 American passport holders and their families. But those numbers could be dwindling. Afghans have been banned from fleeing their country on evacuation flights. A Taliban spokesman said the road that ends at the Kabul airport has been blocked. Foreigners can go through it, but Afghans are not allowed to take the road. The sudden announcement means that thousands of people who have worked for the international coalition and others who fear persecution under the extremist movement are now trapped. And these evacuees may be among the last flown to safety. The Taliban insists there is no need to fear them. The spokesman went on to say Afghans are not allowed because the crowd would grow even bigger and it increases the risk of Afghans losing their lives in stampedes, getting stuck in the crowd, or being stepped on. The numbers of Afghans crowding in the airport are going down. That's because the numbers getting out have been going up. The pace of evacuations accelerated through new efficiency and the need to meet the deadline for the end of the evacuation just a week away.
There's been no change to the timeline of the mission, which is to have this completed by the end of the month.
The Taliban move to stop Afghan nationals from leaving would drastically reduce the level of evacuations and make it easier for the U.S. to meet the August 31st deadline set by the Taliban. The State Department estimates that there are thousands of Americans still in Afghanistan to be evacuated. At the airport, military officers said there had been a significant drop in the number of people trying to get into the airport gates already. Marines are doing their best to help those close to the gate that are still controlled by the Taliban, but some families are separated, with only some members making it past the gates and onto flights. Now, as to those who do make it out of the country, many are wondering where they will end up. Most end up in neighboring countries. According to the UNHCR, nearly 1.5 million Afghans fled to Pakistan in 2020. Iran was next up, hosting 780,000, and Germany came in third with over 180,000 Afghans. But in terms of asylum seekers, Turkey, Germany, and Greece top the list. Now, speaking of borders, let's return to the United States. The U.S. Supreme Court is allowing the revival of a Trump-era immigration policy. On Tuesday, justices declined the Biden administration's request to place the policy, known as Remain in Mexico, on hold. The policy says migrants have to stay in Mexico while they wait for their U.S. immigration court dates. The Supreme Court said the Biden administration did not show that it wasn't acting hastily and without reason when it struck down the Remain in Mexico policy. The legal term is acting in an arbitrary and capricious manner. The program was suspended shortly after President Biden took office and terminated formally a few months later. However, earlier this month, Missouri and Texas sued to challenge the termination, saying that was a violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. And now let's turn to Capitol Hill. The House of Representatives approved a $3.5 trillion budget plan on Tuesday. That's paving the way for Democrats to pass legislation expanding the social safety net. The House voted on a rule to advance both the budget deal and a separate $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. Democrats have outlined 4 main categories they plan to invest in with the budget resolution: infrastructure and jobs, families, climate, and health care. That includes funding for things like pre-K, affordable housing, and dental, vision, and hearing benefits. Moderates in the House played a key role in its passage. They had refused to vote for the budget proposal before the infrastructure bill was passed. But through negotiations, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi agreed to pass the infrastructure bill by September 27th. The budget bill is likely to face challenges in the Senate because moderate Senator Joe Manchin has concerns about the bill's huge price tag. And the House has stayed busy. They also passed a bill bolstering a civil rights-era voting law.
The bill is passed.
That the Supreme Court has weakened. The passage of the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act received praise from President Biden. He said it would protect a sacred right to vote as Democrats approved the measure in a 219 to 212 vote, with all Republicans voting nay. Majority Leader Steny Hoyer is hopeful President Biden will have the chance to sign it.
It's a wonderful day. And John Lewis is saying to himself up there and saying to all of us, you kept your eye on the prize. And the prize was temporarily taken when we passed this bill. But the prize will be taken when Joe Biden signs this bill.
But the chances of it passing the Senate are slim. That's because Senate Republicans reject the bill as a power grab by Democrats and say it's unnecessary. The bill requires the Justice Department to challenge voting laws considered discriminatory. The DOJ would take action in states that have gotten a lot of violations regarding changes in voting laws. And the bill takes on the Supreme Court after it weakened the Civil Rights Act of 1965 twice in the last decade. The John Lewis bill combats gerrymandering or manipulating voting districts so that minorities can elect who they want to represent them. And now, before we end, hints of fall are starting to pop up across the country. Many people consider the release of Starbucks pumpkin spice latte as the unofficial beginning of fall. And Starbucks issued a tweet saying pumpkin has entered the chat. Not to be outdone, Panera is blazing into the fight with a new drink it calls a cinnamon crunch latte. Though it lacks pumpkin flavor, the restaurant is definitely aiming to swipe market share away from Starbucks. The chain issued a statement saying, let's face it, cinnamon crunch trumps pumpkin. Panera is waiting until next Wednesday to launch its new drink, while Starbucks rolled out its pumpkin spice latte on Tuesday. That's earlier than in years past, and it happened as much of the country experienced high temperatures in the 90s. And Starbucks wasn't even the first to the pumpkin punch. Dunkin' launched its pumpkin spice signature latte last week. Dairy Queen is also planning to roll out a pumpkin pie-flavored blizzard. Now, speaking of Starbucks, the company is spicing things up. It's not all about the pumpkin spice latte. Now, Starbucks has another autumnal choice on the menu. It's the apple crisp macchiato, available as an iced or hot drink. Starbucks says it's supposed to taste like eating baked apple pie while drinking coffee. It's on the menu for a limited time in the U.S. and Canada. The company has been offering its famous pumpkin spice latte each fall since 2003. Now, after all this talk about pumpkin-flavored drinks, what about actual pumpkins? In a case of art imitating life, the Halloween classic It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, is alive and well at the Kentucky State Fair. Good grief, Charlie might say if he saw this 1,663-pound gargantuan gourd raised by Floyd County farmer Dwight Stone. It beats the previous Kentucky State giant pumpkin record by just under 70 pounds. There was stiff competition this year from other titanic jack-o'-lanterns, but the Floyd County-grown gourd takes the cake, or pumpkin pie in this case. Champion Dwight Stone isn't giving away his growing secrets or even saying how he managed to get the great pumpkin to the fairgrounds. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and see you soon.